All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Wednesday, July 15th, 2026 meeting of the Metropolitan Planning Organization of Johnson County Urban Area Policy Board. Welcome, everybody. Thank you to North Liberty for hosting. Let's start out with recognizing alternates.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Again, thanks for coming. Kent Ralston, Executive Director. We've got 4, if I'm counting correctly, alternates tonight. We have Brian Leibold for Mayor Chris Hoffman of North Liberty, Kelly Grace for Laura Burgess of Iowa City, Chris O'Brien for Josh Moe of Iowa City, and Troy Kelsey for Louise Fromm, Mayor of University Heights. And I think that is it.
Thank you, Kent. Just a point of privilege from the chair, I would urge folks, especially in the summer, attendance isn't always what it could be. Remember, it's up to you to get your own replacement. So please spread the word to our folks who aren't here to remind them of that.
Appreciate that.
Next is consider approval of meeting minutes. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved. Knutson, second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is to set the next board meeting date, time, and location, which is tentatively September 9th.
Yeah, so we've set that tentatively for September 9th. We usually don't meet in September. We have one meeting in July, which we're at now, which we don't have a technical advisory committee meeting for. That's sort of our normal cadence. We may not need that meeting, but because of our long-range plan and some other things we're working on, we're just hoping you can get on your calendars. And like usual, I'll send out a save the date a month ahead, and then you'll get the full meeting packet a week ahead of time, should we need it.
And who's set to host that?
That is also to be determined.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions for Kent on that? All right, seeing none, next up is public discussion of any item not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the public who has anything for this board? Anyone in the public? Anyone in the public? Last call. Okay, moving on to transportation planning. Item 3A is public hearing and consideration of a resolution adopting a revised MPOJC public participation plan. I will open the public hearing and ask for a staff report.
Thanks, Rod. Good afternoon. Hannah Neal, Associate Transportation Planner. At your May meeting, I provided an informational update on the MPOJC Public Participation Plan, or PPP, and today we will be asking for approval of this plan. As a reminder, a public participation plan is a document designed to formalize the public input process used by MPOs in their planning processes. Each major planning document developed by MPOJC has specific requirements for public input, which vary depending on the governing body requiring the work. MPOJC last adopted a PPP in 2022, and federal guidelines recommend that a plan be updated every 5 years. So that's why we're doing this now. The PPP is consistent with federal and state regulations and stipulates minimum requirements for providing residents and stakeholders with reasonable opportunity for input in the MPOJC planning process. The plan formalizes the planning policies used by MPOJC and encourages public participation and communication with member communities. This plan outlines the MPOJC public input process, including outreach strategies, outlets to notify the public, the MPOJC list of public input organizations, and procedural notices and processes for our public participation plan. This document, the long-range transportation plan, which Madeline will talk about later, the Transportation Improvement Program, which I'll be talking about in the next item, the Passenger Transportation Plan, and the Transportation Planning Work Program. As required by the adopted plan, a 45-day public notice for public input was published and no public comment was received. This PPP is similar to the previous plan and no substantive changes have been made. So today, staff is requesting approval of the MPOJC Public Participation Plan. And I will add as a final note, public participation is kind of a struggle across the board, so it's not uncommon for us to not have received any public comment on this plan.
Any questions for Hannah?
Yeah, we talked about this, I think, at the last meeting where Hannah sort of primed the pump for this item. And, you know, like Hannah said, we struggle to get public participation on, I would say, the bulk of our work products. No surprise to you all being elected officials and in government. It's usually not until we've really pinned down a certain street reconstruction project or something where, of course, people get a little more excited, a little more interested, and then involved. But for things like our long-range plan, which is an agenda item later on the agenda tonight, and some of those things, we struggle to get a lot of good public participation. So important we have this, and appreciate your attention to it this evening.
Well, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to speak to this? Anyone in the public who'd like to speak to this? Final call, anybody? Yep.
I'm in the public, I'm just holding till I hear something, and I'll comment if you want me to. As it comes around.
Well, this is the opportunity you have. We're about to close the public hearing, so if you'd like to say something, please come on up.
Oh, is that, all right, hi, I'm Claire.
Would you mind coming up to the microphone?
Hi. I'm here. I don't necessarily know exactly what to expect being here, but I think it would be very nice if our buses were better connected, especially more bus coverage for Northern Coralville and on weekends. Forever Green Road is very congested. Outside of St. Thomas More on Sundays is very congested. I feel like if more people were in the same vehicle on 12th Avenue and Forever Green Road and in that general area, I would personally take that transport, and I think many people would, and it would just clean up the street a lot better. I feel that Northern Coralville is extremely underutilized when it comes to public transport, considering how much commerce and residential it has.
Well, would you mind, I'm sorry, I want to make sure staff got your name. Would you mind giving your name again?
Claire Hernandez.
Thank you. Are there any other comments for the public hearing? Any other comments? Final call for public comments. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
He'll say second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next we move on to item 3B on our agenda, and that is a public hearing and consideration of resolutions of adoption and certification for the fiscal year 2027 to 2030 MPOJC Transportation Improvement Program. So I will open the public hearing and ask for a staff report.
Thanks, Rod. Hannah Neal, Associate Transportation Planner. This is our annual Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. This TIP covers the 4-year period of FY 27 to 30. The TIP includes all federally funded transportation projects for road and transit and includes state and local projects. Not all projects listed in the TIP will get funded, but in order to be funded, they must be in this document. At your May meeting, you approved the draft TIP project list. This included the transit apportionment, which you approved at your January meeting. MPOJC received just over $5 million in FY25 FTA Section 5307 operating assistance funds for transit. These funds were apportioned to the 3 transit agencies using a fixed percentage-based allocation based on a historic average. As you will recall, this board awards Surface Transportation Block Grant, or STBG, Transportation Alternative Program, or TAP, and Carbon Reduction Program, or CRP funds every 2 years. At your March 2025 meeting, you awarded a total of $10.4 million in STBG funds, $2.1 million in TAP funds, and $3.1 million in CRP funds to a total of 9 projects. Coralville was awarded funding for 3 projects, Iowa City 1 project, North Liberty 3 projects, University Heights 1 project, and the University of Iowa was awarded funding for 1 project. At your last board meeting, the board requested a summary of the projects that have received MPOJC funding by community. Sorry, guys. The handout in your packet provides a breakdown of projects by community, along with details about the type of funds awarded and the fiscal year in which those funds are programmed. All projects under contract with the DOT are removed from the TIP. So once they're let, they're out of the TIP. STBG, TAP, and CRP projects not completed in FY26 were automatically rolled over to FY27. All DOT projects in our planning area are also included in the TIP, and all local projects will continue to be programmed and completed according to federal guidelines as they have in the past. For the transit portion of the TIP, the transit portion includes operating funding and projects from the Transit Program of Projects, which you saw at your March meeting, and it mainly includes buses, equipment replacement, as well as facilities funding for all three transit agencies. And buses are usually replaced using 85% federal funding. Coralville included 16 buses, seven of which are replacement. Iowa City has included 25 buses, all of which are replacement buses, and Canbus has included 24 buses, all of which are replacement buses. In addition to the project lists, the TIP also includes project status reports. It identifies regionally significant projects, the MPO's public input process, kind of like what I just talked about in the PPP, the MPO's project selection procedures used for STBG, TAP, and CRP projects, including the scoring criteria, a fiscal constraint review of the TIP projects, a financial analysis of transit projects, and statements regarding performance-based planning measures for highway safety, pavement and bridge, freight reliability, transit asset management, and transit safety. The draft FY27 to 30 TIP was submitted to the Iowa DOT for review. The MPO also published a public hearing notice in the Gazette and Press Citizen 30 days in advance of this meeting today. All agencies on the MPO's public input list were contacted, and public notice posters were placed on all fixed route buses regarding today's meeting. All of these things are also outlined in the PPP. We received non-substantive comments from the DOT, which were incorporated into the final draft, and we did not receive any public comment on this TIP. The Transportation Technical Advisory Committee unanimously recommended approval of the draft TIP at their May meeting, and this board approved the draft TIP at your May meeting. So today, we are requesting approval of the final FY27 to 30 TIP. And we will submit the final TIP to the Iowa DOT, FHWA, and FTA upon approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So this is one that I commented on at your last meeting. I know there's some new faces in the room, and some of you may not have been present. But as Hannah mentioned, this is one of these federally required documents we have to put together. As you can imagine, Hannah did a nice job reporting on it. They're a little dry, right? But what I had mentioned at your last meeting that is exciting and not so dry is that aside from the transit funds and the transit assets that are represented in the TIP, is this project funding by community that you had all asked for. And that's, as Hannah mentioned in your packet. And at your last meeting, I had mentioned that we've got about $37 million just in MPO funds programmed in the next 4 years. So that's not including the DOT infrastructure funds, not including any of the maintenance funds the DOT provides to us, but just sheer infrastructure funds. There's about 37 million, a little over 37 million programmed in the next 4 years. So assuming that your staffs and your engineers can get those projects get bids and let and constructed, things should be looking quite a bit different in the next 4 years just with the funding that is through the MPO. So, and just a reminder, we go through that funding process every 2 years, and we'll go through that funding process again starting this fall. So you all get a chance to look at a whole new set of projects and a new set of funding that, again, then we'll program and bring back to you this time next year for final approval. And as Hannah mentioned, happy to answer any questions you have about the projects, about the funding, about what's in the TIP.
Okay, hearing no questions, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to speak to anything about this plan? Anybody in the public? Anybody in the public? Final call. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I would entertain a motion.
I moved we approve the TIP 2027 to 2030.
And second, Harmson.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call. All those in favor with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Next, we are going to move on to another resolution. This would be certifying the compliance with the federal requirements. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Wyline.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we're moving on. We are at item C on our agenda, and that is an update on the MPOJC Long Range Transportation Plan revision process.
Hi, good afternoon. Madeline Stone, Associate Transportation Planner. And let me, sorry, 1 second. It's usually the
You're trying to
present
put it in
button.
presentation mode.
Yeah, the button has been moved, I think. Oh, there it is.
I was going to say, I think it's, yep.
Yeah, perfect. Oops. There we go. Okay, perfect. Hi, yeah, like I said, Madeline Stone, Associate Transportation Planner, here to provide an update to our long-range transportation plan. As a reminder, the long-range transportation plan is a required document for all urbanized areas to complete to receive funding, and the plan must be updated every 5 years. At your last meeting, the policy board reviewed the background and regional context chapters of the plan, and since then, MPO staff have continued drafting chapters and analyzing survey data. We will be showing more chapters of the plan to you this fall. So today I have a presentation about the chapter that you had received in your agenda packet, which is our guiding principles chapter. So the first guiding principle that we have here is economic opportunity, supporting growth, innovation, job production, and productivity. When applying economic opportunity, it's important to consider improving transportation access to employment, education, and other businesses. The average commute time, as you can see in this graph right here, is lower than in the metro than the rest of the state. However, this travel time has increased by an average of over a minute in the last 5 years. So something for us to consider. And to improve this, we do have some strategies, and some examples that have happened currently are the widening of 380 to improve connectivity to Cedar Rapids. And then the I-80, 380 interchange, which was completed a few years ago, and then the I-80 First Avenue exit. And then, just to improve connectivity in the area. And then some other strategies that we have for economic opportunity are performing transportation engineering evaluations to maximize efficiency, expand multimodal access to employment areas, and focus transportation investments on the areas of greatest need. And then kind of going in tandem with economic opportunity is efficiency. So building a well-connected transportation network with coordinated land use patterns to reduce travel demand and delay and vehicle miles traveled. This further supports economic opportunity by providing safe, easy access to certain opportunities in land uses. Overall, and you can see our performance measures graph, our trends are looking pretty optimistic as it relates to vehicle miles traveled and travel time reliability. And some other strategies that we're using to further improve efficiency is providing level of service assessments, and areas with poorer level of service ratings do tend to get more points when it comes to funding allocation, and facilitate review of travel signal timings annually, encourage land use patterns that support efficient movement, and this includes mixed use, infill development, and multifamily development, and monitor and prepare for advancements in tech and transportation technologies as that's ever improving. In addition to this, we have choice, offer accessible and affordable multimodal transportation options. Advancing choice allows people to choose the transportation option that works best for them. However, many do not have the opportunity of choice. And by expanding accessible and affordable multimodal transportation, everybody in the metro benefits. An example of this would be the connectivity to North Liberty. The new hospital in North Liberty does provide significant opportunities for employment and healthcare. However, access is a barrier for many. On our long-range transportation plan general survey, we did receive an overwhelming desire for increased transportation options to North Liberty due to the hospital and Liberty High. And to kind of combat this, there are member communities and organizations that are filling this gap. An example of this is 380 that does provide access to North Liberty from Cedar Rapids. North Liberty just launched their commute bus, which is open to the public, and that does have a stop that twice a day does stop at the hospital. And then CAN Bus also does serve an on-demand service that is free and open to the public to access the hospital as well. So other key strategies that we have for choice is exploring opportunities to expand public transit across the metro and enhance access to activity centers to ensure safe, low-stress pedestrian and bicycle facilities and transit service. Then the next guiding principle that we have here is environment. Preserve and protect our natural resources, including water, land, and air. Environment is important to consider when thinking about construction, the impact it has to the natural environment. And then also once vehicles are on the road, the air pollution and air quality that also need to be addressed. Overall, our performance measures are trending in the right direction, which is a good sign. Housing density, so more people are taking up less space for housing, and which is creating a denser environment that will lead to less travel, hopefully. Vehicle miles traveled has decreased significantly as well over the last 5 years, and that equals to over 24 million miles in the last 5 years from the last plan. And then key environment strategies that we have are avoiding impacts to environmentally sensitive areas such as woodlands and wetlands, support increased use of EVs, and improve access to charging infrastructure. And as you can see on the performance measures as well, the number of EV charging stations in the metro has increased significantly. And encourage and support land use plans and policies to enhance overall transportation efficiency, including compact and mixed use development. And then next, we have equity, provide mobility and access for all people and all neighborhoods. In transportation, this means reducing barriers to participation in community activities and eliminating obstacles to access, employment, and housing. In the spring, some of the things that the MPO has done is release surveys to specifically underrepresented populations, such as high school students and middle school students, to understand their transportation needs. And then we had also attempted to obtain more feedback from people whom driving is not an option. And so equity in our complete streets policy, which is an MPO policy that all travel modes must be considered in the design of streets in order to receive federal funding. And our SS4A, which I'll talk about a little bit, and that Sarah Walls has also mentioned a few times, is their policy in the SS4A, which is when awarding grants, equity must be considered, whether a project ensures or will ensure equitable investment in the safety needs of underserved communities and preventing transportation-related fatalities and injuries. Some other strategies to highlight with equity are ensuring a range of affordable transportation options for all people and neighborhoods, prioritize the expansion and improvement of the sidewalk and multi-use trail network, especially for multifamily or mixed-use development, and continue to support the Johnson County Mobility Coordinator. And then next we have quality of life, enhanced livability by creating vibrant and appealing places that serve residents throughout their lives. One part of transportation is, of course, the need to get places. However, there are other important considerations such as recreation and active transportation, which can significantly improve mental and physical health and connect people with their communities. And we had that statistic there that 86% of people on our trail survey mentioned that the trails make them feel more connected to their neighborhood. And as we can see on the performance measures as well, that's also increasing in a positive direction. So the percentage of metro households that are within a quarter mile of a trail is also increased. Some strategies that we have towards quality of life are, again, just continuing to advance that and closing the gaps in the sidewalk and trail network, and then plan for grade separated crossings and high volume roadways to reduce stress for vulnerable users. And then kind of in tandem with quality of life, we have health, support and advance healthy and active lifestyles. Transportation can be used to promote and enhance healthy and active lifestyles through access to trails and sidewalks, as well as ensuring safe, accessible means to essential services like healthcare and grocery. And then we also have that statistic right there that 57% of respondents on the trail survey indicated exercise was their primary use for the trails. And then we have that quote that was received on the survey as well, that that the trails are providing opportunities for exercise that previously might not have been there. And then some strategies to highlight for health are to prioritize infrastructure for walking and bicycling to ensure residents have opportunities to incorporate physical activity in their daily routines. Remove barriers to access by constructing curb ramps, accessible sidewalks, bus stops, signage, and accessible routes throughout the transportation network, and work collaboratively to promote safe transportation through public education efforts. And then next we have system preservation. So when it comes to system preservation, maintaining existing facilities in good and reliable condition, it's crucial to remain cost-effective for transportation projects. There is a considerable shortfall between the money needed and the money received for transportation improvement. And here's kind of an example as to why system preservation is important in that area. This is a statistic I got from a number I got from the DOT that shows the difference in cost between maintenance and reconstruction. In order to help prioritize system preservation during funding allocation, more points are awarded to projects that are geared towards rehabilitation as opposed to new construction. And then some other strategies that we have to highlight include using the pavement condition index, data to focus investment on those roadways classified as being in poor condition, and effectively manage and maximize existing transportation assets by prioritizing rehabilitation and replacement of aging infrastructure over system expansion when possible. And then finally, we have safety. Enhance the safety of all users through a well-designed and maintained transportation network. Safety of all users is a top priority in transportation planning, as they can lead to serious injuries or even be fatal. And safety is a top priority for the MPO, as projects with a documented safety concern can obtain additional points when it comes to funding allocation. The Safe Streets for All grant, which, like I mentioned, Sarah has presented on previously, is a great tool for us to utilize to further understand safety concerns and continue to make it a priority. And some strategies to highlight is that for safety is assisting the policy board in evaluating safety considerations during the grant funding process, assist MPO entities in identifying and applying for safety-related grants, and continue to provide transportation engineering services upon request to member entities. So that's another number I have, that we've completed over 100 traffic counts in the last 5 years based on the request of member entities. And then we're able to use those numbers with federal guidelines to help make informed decisions about safety. So I'm happy to answer any questions or go back to any slides if anybody has.
So I mentioned at every meeting, the long-range plan that Madeline's describing is a requirement of ours, like most things we do every 5 years. We do all of the long-range plan, as we always have, in-house. So this is just a really heavy lift for us. Again, something we have to do every 5 years. Madeline mentioned it, but at your last meeting, we've been bringing bits and pieces to you and trying to kind of hammer you over the head with it, because we only meet every few months to remind you what we've done and then sort of where we're going. Madeline mentioned at your May meeting, we brought you the background and regional context chapters. Tonight, we're bringing you the guiding principles, which obviously kind of frames up the rest of the plan, which will end up being several hundred pages long. And then later, either in September, as we talked about earlier, if we need the meeting, we'll be bringing you to the different modal chapters. So the bike and ped chapters, we'll bring information about our traffic model, which we run in-house and which we work with the DOT to actually create, and then we produce it in-house as well. And then we're able to model traffic patterns and future traffic patterns for your different needs for your communities. So again, it's a big lift for us. And our plan is to bring you all the different modal chapters, again, either in September or November. And then after that, we'll really be off to the races with more public input, and then we'll have the entire plan ready and drafted by the first of the year. So we've been working hard at it, and like Madeline says, happy to answer any questions about the guiding principles we talked about tonight. About half of the guiding principles and the metrics, they're a little bit hard to see on the screen, but we're included in your packet. About half of those metrics are required for us to follow. And about the other half or so are created in-house, and then things that this board and then previous boards have wanted to use. I'm happy to answer your questions you might have.
I had one. Just curious, actually, because I don't know what the other municipalities or governments have going on, but I know Iowa City is doing a comprehensive plan process right now. And I know this is something that you have to do by a certain time, but I was wondering if that's something that MPO and like Iowa City, for instance, like do you work together when it comes to your comprehensive plan? Because land use is like, I think, essential. Like you could, yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, no, we definitely do. And in fact, as many of your comprehensive plans probably are, you're not so much on a schedule, right? Some communities update their comp plan every 5 years, some every 10, and some haven't in a long time. But this year, we're lucky that Iowa City's comprehensive plan and the MPO's long-range plan overlap. So we're actually working with your staffs to make sure that the information is correct. And in terms of land use, and we actually met with Iowa City's North Liberty, Coralville, and Tiffin's urban planners Monday to review land use and land use patterns for our traffic model, because those actually get inputted into our traffic model. So the long answer there is yes, we definitely are working with all your staffs, but Iowa City's particularly, since your comp plan is being created right now.
Cool.
Great question.
Yeah, I was also curious about the slide when it came to, I think this was under health, just curious about a number, if that was just a survey number or about the food environment index. I just thought that was a good trend, but I was just curious about what those numbers necessarily represent.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the Food Environment Index is one that we got through the Food Environment Source through a nonprofit that does analyze this. Okay. And it takes into consideration income and how many grocery stores, what the grocery stores are offering, and essentially access. So are people able to use multimodal transportation to walk or take the bus to get to grocery stores and that stuff.
Okay. I just thought that would be cool information to have.
Yeah, right. And those grocery stores have to serve a certain percentage of healthy foods. Is that right?
Correct.
There's a metric that they use. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yep. Thank you.
Gas stations, for instance, would not. Most gas stations, let's say, would not apply.
Does Trader Joe's count?
Yes.
Yeah.
Trader Joe's would
count. It does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
It's a certain percentage of essentially how many fresh items that they're serving. So. Trader Joe's would be included in that, and a lot of specific like cultural grocery stores and everything are also included because of what they're offering as well.
And the one thing we already talked a little bit about the funding that comes through the MPO that you all will we've already talked about the 37 million or so funds that are programmed through our TIP we talked about tonight, and then I mentioned that this fall we'll start the new process for the competitive grant applications. One of the things we'll bring you for that is our scoring criteria that you all approve before we get into that. And the scoring criteria that we intend to use will have a scoring criteria for this very thing too. So if your project is within a certain distance of a grocery store, for instance, or provides direct access to a grocery store, your project would receive more points. Yep. So we try and align our scoring criteria with our long-range plan, since the long-range plan also has projects in it. And for you to receive funding for the projects that we'll actually talk about this fall, they also have to be in the long-range plan. So there's this kind of layering effect of these, all these different work products that we have.
Out of curiosity, looking at the last slide with the fatalities and injuries, any thoughts on what the increase in the speed limit on rural highways might do to that? Or will that be something that we'll be tracking to see if there is any difference?
That's a great question. That is something we'll be tracking and something the DOT will be tracking as well. I actually had a MPO directors meeting in Ames about a month or so ago, and the DOT director, Scott Martler, actually gave a presentation at that meeting and said that they had registered against that 60 mile an hour per speed limit. So even the Iowa Department of Transportation thought that was not a very good idea.
I didn't know that.
Legislation passed anyway, and now we deal with what comes from it.
I mean, it won't be a big deal within city limits, but our people do travel outside of the city.
Right. And in fact, just a personal account, I actually drove north of Mount Vernon over the 4th of July weekend. So that was on the 4th of July. The law went into effect officially July 1, and they had already changed the speed limit to 60 mile an hour.
Yes, I saw that too. I was at Guttenberg the other day. So.
Yep. So some of the counties are rolling it out pretty quick. Some will be a little slower to get to it, I think. But yeah, so we will be tracking it. We're not excited about it either, but it is what we all have to deal with.
Thanks.
Yep.
I had one more thing. I'm so sorry. Given the grant that we Iowa City and the university got in regards to the Burlington Street Bridge, was that like a opening for room for the MPO, or where does the trade-off come from there? Does that like open things up for y'all, make it easier for you, or?
So the build grant that Iowa City received, what was it now, a few weeks ago, it must have been, 23 million and change, I think, somewhere between 23 and 24 million for the Burlington Street Bridge project. That is a federal grant that really doesn't affect so much what happens inside the MPO. That grant for 24 million, whatever it was, is separate and aside from the MPO. It has to be documented in our TIP. So sometime this year, we can anticipate an amendment to the TIP that you all just approved in the last agenda item. But that's all to say that just has to be included in our TIP, and that shows where it's programmed in the appropriate years. This MPO, our MPO, has also provided almost about $17 million in our MPO fund specifically for that project as well. So I guess the long answer again is they're complementary.
Okay.
Yep, one doesn't take away from the other, they're just complementary. So we've got the build grant now, the 17 or so million that you've all approved for the Burlington Street Bridge project. And I suspect that Iowa City may even ask for more money this next round. Competitive, but if they need more, they may even ask for another round of funding. Given the size of the project, that's not uncommon.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. And those federal grants are exciting because you can use state match as well. So sometimes you can use our funds to even match federal funds, which is nice.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a great question. Any other questions about the long-range plan in general, about what Madeline's provided for you all tonight? Otherwise, we'll just keep bringing more to you in bits and pieces so we don't hit you over the head with the entire thing come January 1st.
All right, let's move on then. Thank you, Madeline. Let's move on to other business. Anything from anyone, other business?
I just mentioned in line with the speed limits going up in the counties that Corryville voted last night to lower the speed limit on Highway 6 west of Lowe's to I-380.
That's good. No. So the one thing we know in transportation planning is the speed differential is really what causes the biggest problems. So and to your comment about the 60 mile an hour speed limit, with tractors and things on our roadways that might only be going 20 or 30 mile an hour, it's that speed differential that usually really causes the trouble. So on freeways, 70 mile an hour is okay. We're all traveling about the same speed. But on some of these county and state highways where you anticipate different types of vehicles and that sort of thing, that's really the biggest concern. And that's where things get a little bit dangerous.
What was the arguments for it? Was it just some type of sloppy list
Yeah, I think I probably know about what you all know, that what I read in the paper. What the DOT director said at that last meeting that I referenced was that I think the legislation had heard from their constituents, and this is something that had been on their minds for a long time, and they were able to get it pushed through this time. Okay. Yeah, that's really all I know about it.
Any other business from anyone? Okay, hearing none, thank you, everybody, and we're adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate your time.